welcome everyone. I'm glad that everybody's made it this morning. We had 16 people registered, and we were very hopeful that all 16 would make it. Obviously, maybe 2 made it, 3. So I did send out an email. We may pick up some more as we move along, but just wanted to welcome everyone and let you know that I am going to record this meeting and I will distribute it through the district. We do have some people who are passionate about peace, and that's what's bringing us here today.
So could I ask, those that registered, how geographically diverse were they?
Good question. I can tell you that. Let's see. So we had folks from Asheville, Franklin, Valdez, Pisgah Forest, Brevard, Highlands, Lenore, Waynesville, Hendersonville, Silva, and more Asheville. I'm sorry that they weren't able to join us today, but we did have a pretty good smattering around our district.
Yeah,
for those
that's
of you,
pretty good.
Those of you not familiar with Western North Carolina, that's pretty broad based there. So they've shown the interest, and we'll be able to hopefully come up with a product today that we can share back with them.
Yeah, and I've had several people write to me and say, they wish they could be here, but they just have another meeting going on. So I think this is a very popular day for meetings.
I don't know.
So we'll make sure. Yeah.
There's a Rotary meeting going on somewhere in the world every hour.
There's a slogan in there somewhere.
The sun never sets on a Rotary meeting. Is that something like that?
That's great. So I think we can kind of start, since our group is so small, we can start by just introducing ourselves and kind of what role, or if we're on the Peace Corps side of things or the Rotary side of things, and then we will kind of turn it over to Steve and Peter, Ted, and myself as I guess the leading constituents of these groups, and then we'll kind of talk about what synergies we see that can happen, and start brainstorming different ways that we think that the group can work together. So I guess I'll start. I am Keevon Baten. I am the district Rotaract representative for District 7670. And I'm also the club president of Rotaract Asheville, here in Asheville. And I am also a returned Peace Corps volunteer. I served in Vanuatu from 2017 to 2019. And I also was a Rotary Youth Exchange participant. And so I spent a year in Brazil from 2011 and 2012.
Okay. I'm District Governor David Wagner I live in Lenore, but Heather, I was born and raised in Fletcher. So from the mountains of North Carolina, and that obviously on the Rotary side of things. Very interested in peace building, and I've attended several peace functions in like at Chapel Hill at our Peace Center, the joint Peace Center there with Duke University and Chapel Hill. And I'm just always impressed with the work that Rotary has been able to achieve globally in building a coalition globally of peace builders. And as Keevon and I talked, one of our goals was to try and create a smaller version in District 7670 and start to build some relationships that could be valuable in the future for building peace. I see we've got a good start on it. So I see now our foundation chair is just logged in. That's wonderful. Go ahead, Heather, or Peter, why don't you introduce yourself, Peter?
Sure, I'm Peter Kyle. I'm a current Rotary International Director for Zones 33 and 34. I hail from New Zealand. I first came to America in the early 70s on a Rotary scholarship to study law at the University of Virginia. Then I went back and got married back to New Zealand, got married and mortgaged and joined a law firm, joined Rotary, got on with life. And then about 20 years later, I came back to America, back to Washington to join the World Bank with my family. 10 years later, my daughter graduated from UVA. 5 years later, my son graduated from UVA. So about it was quite a thrill for me to watch first my daughter, then my son, process down the lawn of Mr. Jefferson's University, as I've done 30 years previously. I retired from the bank in 2009. I'm now full-time on Rotary, and I've been heavily involved in promoting Rotary's peace-building agenda. I chaired the Rotary Peace Centers Committee for 3 years. I chaired the Alumni Committee for 2 years. I was the Dean of the Rotary Representative Network for 2 years, which is the body that oversees Rotary's relationships with the United Nations and other international organizations. And now I'm on the board. So a long-winded introduction, David, but that's who I am.
Perfect. Go ahead. Let's Keevon, why don't you kind of steer us here and how you would like people to introduce themselves? I'll let you take it away, Keevon.
Okay.
You've got the agenda.
Yeah. And also, I also wanted to make sure I introduced Heather Gates. She is going to be creating a mind map or a mural of our discussion today. She's very talented. And Heather, if you want to introduce yourself, I'll let you go ahead.
Sure, thanks. I'm Heather Gates, a very new Rotarian, actually. I am, David, I don't remember. You can help me. I think I'm third generation Rotarian, but there may have been another thrown in there. But I am a member of the Waynesville Club, but I live in Hendersonville. And I'm here today to support Keevon. Outside of Rotary, I am an independent consultant who helps leaders and collaborators build strategy and connection in complexity, in particular in the context of human health and well-being. So I'm kind of bringing my, so as many of us have pivoted from an in-person to virtual tools in doing that, which I'm going to bring today and just offer some virtual facilitation support to the meeting today. I'm very interested in this topic, which is how I got connected to the conversation today, but I'm new to my understanding of the roles that everybody plays. So I'm very excited to learn today, and primarily will be in a facilitation support role. So grateful to be here.
Yeah. Ed, did you want to go next, Ted and Stephen?
Sure, Steve, you want to go?
Go ahead, Ted.
Okay.
You go first.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Ted Adams. I am currently the acting director for our Peace Corps' Office of Strategic Partnerships and Intergovernmental Affairs, as well as our acting director for our Gifts and Grants Management. That is in these times of transition. So where it's that's a separate topic we can talk about if we want. However, my day job is partnership managing our portfolio of partnerships, our global partnerships within Peace Corps. We have U.S. government, we have NGO partners like Rotary and intergovernmental partners as well. So managing those partnerships and promoting them and activating them throughout the agency and throughout our posts. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. I served with my wife in Ecuador, 98 to 2000, and really volunteering and cause marketing, branding have been kind of the common thread throughout my career, starting with the launch of AmeriCorps and working at the launch of the agency in DC 25 years ago, and starting some nonprofits, and then coming back to Peace Corps and working in the office here. So I've been fortunate enough to be the liaison with Rotary International. I have a counterpart within Rotary International, and work with Steve and his crew and other Rotarians to help develop and activate the partnership. And it's been a highlight of my time at the agency.
You want me to go, Keevon?
Yes, please,
Okay,
Stephen.
hi. Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Warner, and I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Denver Southeast, a suburb of Denver, Colorado. And we're in District 5450. And also a returned Peace Corps volunteer, served in South Korea many years ago. I jokingly say, look at what we did, what we accomplished in Korea because of the Peace Corps. Of course, it wasn't just the Peace Corps. The Korean people are very industrious, but still have many friendships after all these years in Korea, which is something I might speak to a little later and when we start the program. More recently, I did a short-term Peace Corps service and many people don't realize that Peace Corps does have something called Peace Corps response. So I think it's perfect for Rotarians, because you could take 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, or 12 months and use your technical skills where there's a need requested by government. And I went to the country of Georgia, and it was a fun experience to go back in Peace Corps after many years and use my background. So my day job is working with international nonprofits on water and sanitation projects, helping them design them to be stronger, helping them to develop partnerships and get funding. And I've consult now, but I've been in senior positions with a number of nonprofits that work on those kind of issues. So I'm a member of the Water and Sanitation Rotarian Action Group and also the Peace Action Group. So I think that's enough for now. Oh, and I guess I'd be, since Kim Dixon has joined us, I, along with Kim and others, started a nonprofit that's a 501c4 to promote the partnership called Partnering for Peace, and I'll speak to that a little later. And Kim is the current president of Partnering for Peace.
I'll go.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Well, I just wanted to hop in and say hi. I apologize. I have another meeting. So, but I just wanted to meet Keevon and David and Peter. I've heard your name, and see Ted again and everybody. I'm a Rotarian next door to you guys. I'm in 7710 district. I live in Raleigh. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer just recently. Well, I was in the country of Georgia from 2014 to 2016, and then went back there for another year and a half on my own. It's a beautiful, wonderful country. And it was an honor to serve there. I'm also a Rotary member of the Midtown Raleigh Club, and I'm a organizational change management consultant. And this year I'm president of Partnering for Peace and trying to follow in Steve's footsteps. And it's really such a grassroots effort that, I mean, everyone, I'm thinking of 5 people just in your district that, you know, that are returned Peace Corps volunteers that have been really active. And there's so much synergy going on. I'm working with Shafi Parekh. I don't know if you work with him. He was a past district governor in our district who's really anxious to get more synergy going between the returned Peace Corps volunteers in North Carolina and the Rotary Club. We even have a task force at the district level to work on that. And I'm honored to be one of the interviewers for the Rotary Peace Fellowship program, which is really amazing. Amazing. So again, I apologize. I just wanted to hop in and say hi and thank you all for this good work. Really great. And we'll be following you, and maybe I can bring it over to our district too and have some synergy between North Carolina districts.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of things that we can kind of learn from each other's districts. So that'd be great to talk about a little bit later. Yeah, I wanted to transition now into our next kind of segment of the program. I know that I originally said that we'd be introducing each other, but we had some more people jump on. So I think it'd be great if we could get Peter Kyle, our Rotary International Director, to talk a little bit about what Rotary is currently doing in the world of peace and how, what the synergies are that he sees in areas for opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keevon. Good morning again, everybody. Good to see you all. I see Carol King is on the line, and Isaac. Hope we see your photos before too long, Carol and Isaac. Rotary has a long and rich history of peace building. This year we will celebrate the 100th anniversary of a resolution which was passed in Scotland in 1921 at the Rotary International Convention, calling on Rotarians to promote international understanding, goodwill, and peace. Those words, international understanding, goodwill, and peace, have since been enshrined in the official object of Rotary. And of course, they are the basis of the work of the Rotary Foundation. In 1940, Rotarians were meeting in Havana, Cuba at an international convention. They passed a resolution calling, amongst other things, for respect for human rights. That was the first time those words, respect for human rights, had entered into the international vocabulary. And that became the basis for the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, signed in 1948, one of the most significant documents signed in the last century. In 1942, a number of Rotarians met in London. They were concerned about the impact of the Second World War on education, on scientific research, on cultural monuments and traditions. They passed a resolution which a few years later led to the creation of UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. 2 years later, in 1944, Rotary was one of a very small number of organizations invited to participate in the drafting of the United Nations Charter. President Truman and Prime Minister Churchill had decreed that the time had come to develop an organization which would forever prohibit war. So when the charter was signed in 1945 in San Francisco, 49 out of the 800 delegates were Rotarians. Our relationship with the UN went into abeyance to some extent during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. This was the time of the Cold War. But we reconnected with the UN in the mid-80s when we embarked upon the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. We partnered with UNICEF, with WHO, with CDC, and then subsequently with the Gates Foundation, Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccines, and other partners. In 1990, the board established the Rotary Representative Network, which is the body that oversees Rotary's relationships with the United Nations and other international organizations. And we have some 16 UN and other entities in the network, and we have a cohort of 32 Rotarians who represent us in those organizations in Rome and Paris and London and Brussels, Geneva, Nairobi, and so on. I had the good fortune to chair that network for several years. Early this century, around 2010, Rotary embarked upon Future Vision, a new roadmap for the Rotary Foundation. And as part of that, we developed 6 areas of focus, one of which was peace and conflict resolution. Now, of course, we have 7. A few years later, we established the Rotary Action Group for Peace, which is quite active in promoting a variety of peace-building initiatives around the world. We have peace conferences, we have peace symposia. We've partnered with the Peace Corps. We've partnered with the Institute for Economics and Peace, which is the body that produces the Global Peace Index every year, measuring the peaceability of nations. We've partnered with Mediators Beyond Borders. We have a Peace Academy, we have peace workshops, you name it. We have some peace-related activity all over the world. I've often said that after we've eradicated polio, and we will eradicate polio, although we aren't supposed to talk about the next corporate initiative, and there may or may not be one, but I'd rather like to think that peace or peace building will be part of the next initiative, because peace has been such an important component of Rotary's activities all around the world. Peace is in our DNA. We have a number of peace education initiatives around the world. I'm in the process of rolling out a significant youth and peace in action, engaging 100,000 young community peace builders in our 2 zones. And there are similar initiatives being carried out in other parts of the world. So Rotary has a very strong peace building dimension. And I see this continuing. I see Rotarians. Rotarians have not only the capability, but I believe the responsibility to do what we can to help bridge some of the partisan divide that this country suffers from and other countries suffer from. Conflict arises locally. Solutions need to be developed locally. What better organization to engage in local peace-related solutions in our local communities than Rotary. We have such a strong brand, we have the resources, we have the goodwill. So I believe Rotary has a very important role to play at the ground roots level in promoting peace throughout our communities. So I'll stop there in order to give others a chance to talk. I'm delighted to be with you, and I look forward to the results of this interesting session. Thank you, Keevon.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. That's great. I'll ask Steve Warren to speak next.
Thank you, Keevon, and everybody for including us in this seminar this morning. And I hope it's just the start of a long-term dialogue and partnership that we can develop with your district. My role, as a Rotarian and as a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and on this program today is to talk about partnering for peace and why there is a partnership between Peace Corps and Rotary. And Ted, representing Peace Corps, can talk more about Peace Corps' involvement in peace initiatives around the world. But about 7 or 8 years ago at a district conference, we're in District 5450, where you normally find Rotarians and Peace Corps volunteers or returned Peace Corps volunteers is around the bar. And we just started talking and noticed that about 25 of us Rotarians at the district conference had all served in the Peace Corps. So then when we looked at the Rotary strategic plan and the Peace Corps strategic plan, you could have just taken one name out and inserted the other name. They were so closely aligned. And then, as Peter already mentioned, we have the 7 areas of focus now, 6 areas of focus then. But those are also the 6 or 7 major programs of Peace Corps. So there was just so much alignment between the 2 organizations. So we started unofficially lobbying Rotary and Peace Corps leadership to sit down together and see if a partnership made sense. In our minds, it did, because the returned Peace Corps volunteers are challenged to continue their service, and what would be a better way to continue service than through Rotary. And likewise, Rotarians have so much interest in the world and expertise that they are perfect candidates to be Peace Corps volunteers. And you may not know, and Ted can, I don't want to get into Ted's remarks, but one of the fastest growing segments of Peace Corps volunteers are young retirees. But as I mentioned, if you can't do 2 years, you can do a short-term Peace Corps assignment using your expertise in a country. So, there's a way for returned Peace Corps volunteers to fit right naturally into Rotary, and also for Rotarians to fit naturally into Peace Corps. And then when you look at the projects that we do around the world, one thing I wanted to say in regard to the specific topic of the seminar, which is on peace, is we've all heard the slogans about you can't have peace without justice. You can't have peace without improving conditions that keep people mired in poverty. And so that's the focus of Peace Corps, and it's also the focus of Rotary. And then specifically in regard to peace, I'll just highlight very quickly a couple of projects. In Ukraine, Peace Corps volunteers work very closely with Rotarians to start RILA. And now they're going into their 3rd year of having a RILA conference where Peace Corps volunteers provide some of the boots on the ground and work very closely with Rotarians. And so that can be replicated in other countries, but I think we all see the value of RILA and how getting young people developing their leadership skills can contribute to peace in the long run. In other places, Rotary clubs have worked closely with Peace Corps volunteers on education and literacy projects where they've helped to start libraries and Peace Corps volunteer schools. But taking that a step further, Rotarians, because of their expertise, have helped to build on that initial project to start international baccalaureate programs in Costa Rica. again, our role as Partnering for Peace is to find really good, interesting projects that can be replicated and try to spread the word to other Rotary clubs about how they could do something similar. And in southern Thailand, I mean, we have about 75 examples of really nice, neat projects, but in southern Thailand, Rotarians recruited Peace Corps volunteers to be trained as peace facilitators. They worked in an area that had a lot of conflict in southern Thailand, and Peace Corps volunteers were working near that area. They went through the training that Rotarians conducted, and they went back to their villages and helped to facilitate discussions that helped to lessen conflict in those areas. So those are just three quick examples, and I want to leave time for Ted to talk more specifically. But I'll finish with one quick story. In my younger days, I was the board chair for the National Peace Corps Association, which is the alumni organization for Peace Corps. Anybody who served in Peace Corps can be a member of the National Peace Corps Association. But in the course of helping that organization to grow, I had the chance to spend a lot of time with Sarge Shriver, and I think everybody has heard of him. He was the first director of the Peace Corps. He was President Kennedy's brother-in-law. But Sarge, he was such a wonderful man and such a strong personality. But I'd be in his office when we would be talking about other things that he was helping us with. But I would just remember he took an hour and a half on one visit when it was only supposed to be about a 20-minute visit to tell me why we're called Return Peace Corps volunteers. And he said, you know, I didn't want you to be called alums or former Peace Corps. You know, once you're a Peace Corps volunteer, you're always a Peace Corps volunteer. You just come back from overseas and you continue doing Peace Corps type work back home. And so that's why he insisted we be called Return Peace Corps volunteers. So what is more perfect than for a Return Peace Corps volunteer to get involved with Rotary and continue their service through Rotary? So Ted, I'll turn it over to you.
And before we jump in that presentation, Heather, I think did you want to?
Yeah, I'm actually just want to, and I think it's fine for us not to show the mural while people are talking, but just to make sure that we're all tracking the conversation so far, I have a quick check-in, and you may need to kind of spread your faces back out. A couple of clarifying questions, actually, as I'm putting the mural together. So certainly Rotary kind of going over the strong peace building history with capability and responsibility for peace. Partnering for Peace really focused on finding programs that can be replicated at the intersection, it sounds, between Rotary and Peace Corps. One clarifying question, maybe everybody knows except for me. I think as we were going over, Stephen, as we were going over projects, you mentioned Peace Corps are working with Rotarians. It sounded like RILA, but I don't know if that's an acronym or a program.
Oh, sorry. It's Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. It's a training program that many Rotary districts put on to bring young people together to develop their leadership skills. So it's RYLA, Rotary Youth Leadership Awards.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. So just so the group knows, I'm going to be capturing just snippets from the conversations of presenters so that you all have this content for future. Okay, go ahead.
Heather, that's exciting. Thank you so much for showing us that too, honestly. Sure, so I'll jump in here. Thanks so much, Steve. He's, really I'm trying to think of how I want to make sure I'm complimenting what he's saying, and he describes it so well. And Rotary, but Steve in particular, and Kim and the work of their Partnering for Peace have really been really helpful thought leaders in figuring out how to activate this partnership. And they're also our boots on the ground, so to speak, between Rotary and Peace, knowing Peace Corps and knowing Rotary. So it's very unique across our partnership portfolio to have this kind of, triumvirate, if you will, of having both of our agencies, or, Rotary International in Evanston, ourselves in Washington, and Steve and Kim and their crew Partnering for Peace helping activate. So, and bringing these conversations, helping plug in these conversations. So I thought one of my essentially the strategic partnership and the MOU between our agencies is all about connecting the dots between Rotary and Peace Corps across our global networks, right? In some ways, we're very similar. We both have, a headquarters, and we have decentralized, almost like affiliates. Peace Corps has posts, but they're very driven by local priorities and initiatives by intention. So they're very decentralized, and so is Rotary, right? There's general priorities and issue areas and focuses, but it's very much based on the needs and the resources on the ground. So again, more about our DNA, right? Our common DNA across our organizations. But I thought what might be helpful was just to explain a little bit about how Peace Corps works, skipping some of the obvious, I think, because of how advanced this group is around peace building and Peace Corps, but that it might help germinate some ideas and how to really kind of plug in on the ground. I'm glad Steve gave us some concrete examples. I'm happy to talk more about that. But so, there are three goals for Peace Corps, and it's relevant because our resources and time spent and investment in volunteers revolves around these three components. There is the capacity building on the ground side by side. There's the cultural exchange, and then third, there's the bringing it home, which Steve encapsulated beautifully in his conversation with Sarge, and bringing the learning, and as indicated by Keevon and his work right here, bringing us all together. So those three are really the three pillars for Peace Corps, and we weaves its way through everything we do. Our approach to development, I think it's just so much similar to Rotary in so many ways. It's people to people, it's locally led, it's about local solutions, tackling local problems, and it's about sustainability and entering into projects and engagements that are sustainable after a Peace Corps volunteer leaves. How that overlays on multiple levels on that approach is at the international level, Peace Corps actually is invited in to come to countries based on a country's needs and priorities. So that's kind of key to our approach as well, in that Peace Corps only goes where it's invited, and it's invited by governments. So you have these kind of concentric circles. You've got Peace Corps and what resources we can bring through our volunteers. You've got a government inviting us in around certain issues and priorities that they would like us to try to address. And then you have a third kind of circle, which is the local need. And so the Peace Corps volunteer, we see kind of the sweet spot for the Peace Corps volunteer is that intersection between all those three circles. And that is a big part about what shapes what we do and can do on the ground. When you moved into the volunteer level, it's also how the resources that are invested in the volunteer. So a lot of investment in training volunteers goes into not just the technical area that they might be working across health or education or environment or these different areas, but also in assessing needs and doing local community needs assessments. So as we're thinking about practical ways to plug each other in, think about what our volunteers are being trained to do and on the ground and kind of the resources they can bring to the table. Also language, right? Language proficiency so that you can really truly engage with the community. There's 3 months of training 24/7. Keevon can attest to this, or anyone who's been through Peace Corps. That's a critical element to our work. And then finally, the resources are put into being embedded into the community, right? You're living there for 2 years in a community, either with the family or amongst the people, which is a unique aspect of our model, even among volunteer sending organizations. So you're building trust, you're getting to know the stakeholders, you're assessing the needs and the resources to tackle those needs. Our partnerships, and this part, so bringing it into focus around our partnership, we're looking for entry points, I guess I call them, that are as close to the ground as possible. And that could be, we're talking to volunteers connecting with local Rotary clubs in country. Also talking about connecting, district governors maybe to posts. But then in the US too, how that shapes out is getting returned Peace Corps volunteers plugged into the Rotary clubs in their communities as they come back, and they're looking for, continuing their civic leadership and engagement, and looking to mentor in and continue their career building. So how we identify or how we engage with volunteers, the role of the volunteer on the ground, they're there for 2 years. The typical profile is more of a generalist, mainly because of the age of the volunteers. They're not quite as much work and professional experience. That's different in the Peace Corps response that Steve mentioned. Those are folks who are more focused on highly more technical skills. So they're often generalists. They're living in the community and they're focusing on capacity building. So in partnerships, how that pans out in partnerships is we're looking at how, we want people to see volunteers as facilitators and connectors, and trainers and folks that have trust in the community and are supporting the capacity building. So, and what they're not, right? They're not employees. Like we don't place volunteers in nonprofits to be employees, right? They're there to help train employees to do the needs that they've defined. They're not, I'm trying to think of really practical things that sometimes they're not grant writers. They're not project managers. They're not philanthropists, right? They don't necessarily bring stuff to a community. So that sometimes is important as we have these conversations about where is the sweet spot, where's the best fit.
Mhm.
Now they can facilitate, right? They can connect.
Mhm.
So in a case where a book drive with Rotary, the most effective way we found for Peace Corps volunteers to help is to help identify the schools that might really value the books, and maybe work with a local in-country Rotary club to help with the distribution, rather than having books sent to Peace Corps office in said country or something like that. So I just lay that out because I think people have so many great ideas and trying to think about, okay, this volunteer, he is here for a short period of time. What can they do while they're there to help build the capacity? And so we have some tools that we offer volunteers. We have the Peace Corps Partnership Program, which is a small grant program, and generally it's like $2,000 to $3,000 grants. But the philosophy behind it is that projects are vetted and designed so that the community is bringing their investment to the table. It's being led by the local community, that the project can be completed while volunteers there, and it's really kind of built in all these checkpoints to make sure that can happen. I'm glad Steve mentioned some more tangible projects, so I hope that can be kind of a jumping off spot. We have a large guidance document that we've developed over the last 3 years of the partnership to kind of highlight best practices as they're coming in. And there's so many more out there, and we're going to get them all, but trying to highlight those and just share them and to seed ideas. And I hope that can be useful. And then just in general, I'll just throw out there that I should have started with this. We're celebrating our 61st year. So our 60th anniversary, March 1st is when Peace Corps was founded. And so next week is Peace Corps Week. So there's a whole number of events out there talking about Peace Corps through the generations. We actually have a thought leaders conversation around Peace Corps RPCVs, Return Peace Corps Volunteers in Philanthropy, a whole number of things. So if people are interested in finding out more about Peace Corps, that's a great opportunity too. So let me stop there. I hope that's helpful, laying out kind of our structure and the partnership, and look forward to the conversation.
Ted, I'm going to screen share what I captured real quick just to pick up a couple of highlights about how Peace Corps works. We're talking about shared philosophy, people to people, locally led, local solutions, and sustainability. Understanding as far as when we think about synergy between the two, what is the role of the volunteer, kind of boots on the ground in their placement, and how do we see them as facilitators, connectors, and trainers? I hope I captured quickly this kind of Venn diagram you were describing about the sweet spot for a volunteer that's being brought into the intersection of governmental local need and kind of the role of Peace Corps. And then partnerships that you all already have in place that are kind of at placement, which are looking for entry points on the ground or connections there. And then for returning Peace Corps volunteers connecting back to Rotary at home. So just a quick capture of the conversation before we go to Keevon, I think. Anything key that I misunderstood about what you said there, feel free to send me a note in the chat and we can correct it.
You type fast.
Thank you. It is I will confess to you all right now, it is a new challenge for me to try to capture in a context where I don't know all the, all the programs as well. So we'll see what we get here.
And I believe, Peter Kyle, did you have the drop off?
I've got another 5 minutes. So
Okay.
Can I just comment? I was really interested in what Ted said, and I just see so many synergies.
Mhm.
Rotary is a bottom-up organization. All projects initiate from clubs. It is not a top-down. The board has no authority to impose projects on clubs, with the exception of things like polio and the Rotary Peace Center program, which have a rather unique sort of method of gestation. All projects arise locally. And I see a lot of possibilities for volunteers, Peace Corps volunteers who are in the field to link up with Rotary clubs in the field, to provide some guidance on possible projects which the local club might want to promote. And then for the volunteer, perhaps to communicate back to their own part of the world, whatever part of North America they come from, and to promote the needs of the communities in which they are based. We, as Ted said, we have similar objectives. We have a different way of getting there. The one thing about the Peace Corps volunteers is that they, in my experience, and I've met quite a few, they're all very passionate. They're very enthusiastic, very well-meaning, anxious to continue the work of their overseas experience in some way, in some form, back home. So Rotary would love to get closer to the Peace Corps volunteers. They may or may not join a Rotary club, but I think there are all sorts of opportunities for collaboration between returned Peace Corps volunteers. Carol King and I have had an offline chat, and I think we'll continue that. I really do think it's time we elevated the partnership, Ted, between Rotary and the Peace Corps to a new level of engagement. It's sort of been, I haven't been directly involved with it, but it seems to me that this has all sorts of opportunities where, because of the new world of connectivity that we live in, these possibilities have increased exponentially. So I think one outcome of this meeting might be to set up some sort of, dare I say it, a task force or a group that might think about what might the next level of engagement between our two organizations look like? Where are the soft spots? Is it retirees? Is it newly returned younger people who might be looking to promote projects? I don't know, but I think there's a lot of scope for discussion. So to Ted, to Keevon, to Steve, and then to the Rotarians on the group, I think this is a great initiative. I congratulate you on getting it off the ground, David. And I wish everybody well. And behind the scenes, I'm happy to help in any way I can. So with that, I do have to leave. So my apologies.
Let me offer my thanks to you, Peter. Thank you so much for participating with us today and being with us. And I'll let Keevon, I know he wanted to say something as well, but thank you.
Oh, I was going to say that was right there. That was the goal of the meeting. So that was perfect.
Yes.
I wish you could have wrapped us all up.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Peter.
David, can I say something?
Keevon's the moderator.
Yeah.
So what I'm noticing, one of the things that, and Peter and I were chatting back and forth as Ted and everybody else was talking, and we were just rolling our heads together. And I said, this is and while I was listening, I flipped up on the internet to retirees for for Peace Corps and looked at that. And then I suddenly realized that there are 5 people on this call from my club, and I said, I think that what we need to do is, this is what Peter and I were talking about. Peter's initiative primarily is focused towards students. And I said, I think that we need to give some conversation, or perhaps even a survey or some due diligence to finding out if there is an interest among our retirees to create a program that would be similar to what we would think of as our student exchange program, our high school program, where essentially volunteers, and I assume they would be retirees because they'd have to be able to leave the area for a while, could match up with the need in the Peace Corps, having a host retiree club on the other end, a Rotary club on the other end. So we would have both the Rotary and the Peace Corps wherever we went. We would have that dual connection. We'd have a committed amount of time. We'd have a skill set going out there. And I'm curious, so I suggested to Peter, why not have another prong on the work that you're doing with students and make that prong be for retirees? And if we could, I just recommend Sophia, our president, is online. If we could form a committee, or maybe it needs to be done at the district level, and just so happens that there's 5 people from my club on this call. So obviously there's an interest in my club, to sort of create a committee to do some due diligence around interest and need and possibilities, and do that from a district level or even potentially a zone level. But obviously, if we have that many people from our club, why not build on that and see what the next step might be? Thoughts, Keevon or David or whoever?
Yeah, I love that. That's something that I didn't personally think of, and I think that that's great. I feel like even when I presented to the club yesterday, and I think Rick was kind of asking about what the Peace Corps program kind of looks like. I certainly felt like that was an interest in being a part of a program, just like you're saying, something like this. So I feel like if we could get that out to more people who are, recently retired and find that they have a lot of time on their hands, but still want to give back and would be willing to travel to another country as long as they're, welcomed in by other Rotarians and have the support group around them. And also looking at those, like Steve and Ted mentioned, looking at those shorter term exchanges or Peace Corps volunteer services where it's only 6 months or 9 months or 12 months and not necessarily 2 years. I think a lot of Rotarians would be interested in that.
And you're also looking at potentially couples instead of just individuals.
And couples, yep.
And
there's opportunities.
I think of my husband, he's a doctor, I'm a CPA financial advisor, there's all kinds of resources right there. And I'm going, send us to a country for 3 months. I mean, he's down in Bolivia now for a month, so there are people. And when I look in the work I do, and I'm looking at the blossoming retirees, you're talking about people who are essentially baby boomers, who were, if you were given birth to in the age of Aquarius, remember what we were all doing back in the 70s. So, I'm just saying, I think there's some seeds there that we might be able to feed and seed and think about. But I think that you can't just kind of think that's a good idea. I think you really have to come up with a practical due diligence plan and see what it is that you're trying to measure and come up with an idea in conversation with the Peace Corps and Rotarians to see if there's something we could do more than whimsically, do intentionally and structured in a way that it could be replicated, that it's repeatable whenever we do it. And I just think that I'm suggesting that it start with our clubs, and so many of us on this are from the same club.
And is that the Asheville Club, just to clarify, Carol? This is the Asheville Club that has such...
But Susan Bingham is on this call, so we could include Valdez if she thought that she was interested. A lot of great stuff happening in Valdez as well. But it's essentially 2 clubs being represented and 5 of them being from one club. And so I'm saying, wow, that's kind of a statement in and of itself about the interest in this club for carrying on this conversation. And maybe we should end with an intentional action step, like forming a committee and starting to talk about what the process would be, with maybe Stephen on it and Ted on it or whoever. So we need that Peace Corps conversation where we didn't go off on a we need some balance in it with information, but that's what I'm suggesting could be an outcome of this effort that Keevon started.
And I apologize, this is Steve, that I have to get on a Partnering for Peace call, but I am all in and I can speak for Partnering for Peace. Could be me or Kim, who's in Raleigh. We would love to work with you to further this discussion, further some tangible action steps that can come out of this session today. So
Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thanks for including me.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you
Bye.
very much for participating. And I think just on Steve's comment there about partnering for peace, and to Carol's point, and just all this sort of synergy that we've discovered and highlighted to, the Partnering for Peace document that was alluded to, I think Ted brought it up perhaps first, and it's very extensive. There's a lot of the due diligence, that, if you will, that has been done there, that the discussion of the various resources that are available in the two organizations, and but Rotary and Peace Corps. And I think that would be a great starting point to begin to think about real action steps that we can implement at the club level, and perhaps on the Peace Corps side as well. I think that's Ted, you can maybe clarify with that. I believe that's the intent of the document.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Ted, for
Thanks,
carrying
Stephen.
on. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Steve. Bye.
Yes, David, you're right. That's the intent of the document. I think Steve and Kim at a later point can give some great example. Well, Steve, because of I know what his club's done in Colorado, but they've already applied a lot of interesting tactics or strategies for how to engage, either to engage with Peace Corps volunteers who are going out to the field, or invitees, so that when they're out in the field, they can reach back and stay connected with the Colorado Rotary chapter, but also how to engage them, offer and make models for how to bring them, offer them opportunities to come back and engage with the club after they finish their service. And then I'll just note one thing, we have a group, for example, as a result of this coordination, these conversations, there's a group formed of recruiters we call the Rotary Task Team. And so they come together and are trying to figure out the best way to engage with clubs, to be available to clubs, both to connect them with recruiters to talk about programs for Rotarians, but also the recruiters can be great contacts to our PCVs, Return Peace Corps volunteers. If clubs just want to have an RPCV like Keevon come to their club and talk about a certain country, a certain topic, or their experience in Peace Corps.
Cool.
Yeah. And I certainly like that we kind of can come from this with knowing kind of people who are interested in building this relationship, and then being able to look at some of the examples of what's kind of already being done, and what can we implement at a club level or at a district level to actually kind of get some of these things out rolling and going in our club. So that's very exciting to me. Because I know, when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, as I mentioned, and through just, very, like I think Carol mentioned, very whimsically, I came in contact with a Rotarian from Australia, and we put together a project for my community, and it ended up coming to fruition after I had left. But it was kind of through our kind of partnership that club, that we were able to bring a new school building to my community. But like I said, it just kind of happened very, very serendipitously. And so I'd love to see some more intention behind that. And then also, when returning from the Peace Corps and coming back stateside, just luckily had been involved with Rotary from the beginning, or before I left. And so immediately came back into that group, as I wanted to continue to do this, civic engagement and being able to give back to the world. And so it was just a great community. And I thought of, how many other people, and as I talked to other Peace Corps volunteers from my group, and they said, come back and I don't really know where to go. And I don't, I feel kind of lost. And so just finding my tribe and finding like the place that I really felt comfortable with people who shared those same values in Rotary and as a Rotaractor, just wanting to put that support around Peace Corps volunteers as they come together, and just knowing that I think like also like we mentioned, you know, Rotarians would make great Peace Corps volunteers, and Peace Corps volunteers would make great Rotarians, and so there's just that back and forth. And so how can we elevate each other in the name of peace? So.
Keevon, I have just a couple of clarifying pieces on the mural so far. When we mentioned the Partnering for Peace document, I wonder if that's something as a follow-up to this meeting that could be sent around to everybody. I'm not sure that, I mean, maybe everybody has it, but is there a specific action item we need to task either somebody with sending or all of us in finding?
I can send it out.
Okay.
I know that. I think, Ted, you shared it with me before, and so I have it in my document.
And it's actually a document developed by, the guidance document developed by Peace Corps and Rotary International.
Okay.
Just officially, just so you know, the Partnering for Peace. And then Partnering for Peace has a lot of other resources of examples of things that have worked on their website.
Mm-hmm.
But what I shared,
Okay, I'm sorry.
The official document.
Yeah, I know that I heard Kim Dixon also mention I don't know if it was a district level task force or a club level task force that they have in her district, but I thought that was a great initiative that they started to like you said, be in charge of that initiative.
Okay, so Keevon, you're going to share this, and Ted, just to make sure I got you, I think I incorrectly referred to that as a Partnering for Peace document. And to clarify, it's a guidance document developed by Rotary International and Peace Corps together.
Exactly.
Got it.
The one we're referring to. Yeah.
And there may be others. And Keevon's going to make sure that we all have that. Certainly sounds like there's some interest here and some specific next steps around whether it's the Asheville Club specifically or district level conversation about exploring this topic more. I don't know if there's an action item we want to commit to here before we leave the conversation, or we want to kind of wait to see. And then
can I also say my comment about the, because I looked up while everybody was speaking, what fellowships exist, what Rotary fellowships exist. And there was one for Peace Fellows, but not one for Peace Corps volunteers. And I mean, obviously we have a lot of former Peace Corps volunteers who are in Rotary, but I'm just thinking like what a think tank that would be if there were such a fellowship, because we're talking about all different clubs, combining the Peace Corps volunteers from a variety of clubs, and they could come together and do really great things. And it seems like a really easy way to start such a thing, because fellowships are very accessible to everybody as long as one is started.
Great.
And I apologize, Sophia, I'm noticing now the chat, so I'll make sure if there's stuff in there that I need to pull into the mural that I take a look at your details there.
And so just so there's no confusion, it's a Rotary fellowship, not just the regular Peace Corps volunteer, former Peace Corps volunteer fellowship. It would be a Rotary fellowship.
And so would that look like, go ahead. Oh, sorry, Carol.
Sophia, I think as part of our due diligence, the first thing we'd have to do is find everything that already exists, and put it all on the table. Like, what is there out there now that we like the partnering, the fellowship, all those things we'd have to kind of put together and see if they can be synthesized. But what I want to ask you, Sophia, is this, are you comfortable as our club president saying we can point this, we can initiate this action in our club, start it as our club along with Susan, or do we need to take this to I think there's 5 of us here, and I'm thinking, and you're the president of the club, Sophia, so I just kind of want to hear what your thoughts are if we can launch this from our club.
I would want to absolutely, if we were to start, that light that fire, I'd be very happy to do that. I would want some of our former Peace Corps volunteers to take the lead on that. I hope you're listening, Keith. And but I always feel like you know, if we could get more groups to join us, and perhaps through the North Carolina Former Peace Corps Volunteer Fellowship, we can access who those people are. I mean, I think they're the best ones to move forward. I have very little knowledge of Peace Corps, but I do know, I think in every part of my life, be it church, be it work, be it Rotary, there are former Peace Corps volunteers. And they do share a heart for service, same as Rotary. And I mean, I just think that this is a very important conversation, and I would be so surprised if this is not happening elsewhere. So let's start it and see what happens.
One thing I'll note is that there are return Peace Corps group clubs and affinity groups across the country. They're self-organized, like the agency doesn't control those, but he knows a lot about those networks. But I'm sure there's probably one in Asheville, a group of return Peace Corps volunteers of Asheville.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Somebody's got some background noise interfering.
Yeah, I would just note that there are we call them affinity groups that are organized. They're self-organized, so they're not organized by the agency, the Peace Corps agency, of return Peace Corps volunteer groups. So there may be one of return Peace Corps volunteers of Asheville or of North Carolina. I don't know offhand what those groups are, but they're also there as a potential source.
Ted, is there a place where they're all listed? Is there a website we could go to see if there is one in our area?
The National Peace Corps Association. I can put it in there. I can put it in I'll put the address in there.
And Ted, sorry, not Ted. Thank you for sharing that, Ted. So, but Keith, it looked like you wanted to say something. You had your hand raised.
Unmute. There. I've got 2 Zoom meetings going on. This one and then the one that Kim Dixon and Steve Werner are on. That's the Partnering for Peace, webinar that's going on simultaneously with this, and so it's a conflict. About 15 years ago, there was an effort made to create a fellowship under the Rotary umbrella for former Peace Corps volunteers who are interested in, continuing service. And it didn't get very far. RI did not support it, and it sort of collapsed, which is too bad. I believe Steve Werner was one of the ramrods on that. And the end result was that the Partnering for Peace organization was created, but coming not from RI, coming from the Peace Corps side. And so that organization basically is the same one, except that it has its origin with the Peace Corps rather than with Rotary. And that's this other meeting that I'm doing a webinar on right now. It's the same thing. I think the challenge that I've seen for a long time is that the Peace Corps volunteers coming back are not really aware of Rotary any more than Rotarians are aware of Peace Corps. And so I think the challenge is to create that awareness so that it can logically result in coordination between the 2 groups, because there's not a whole lot of overlap there. Keevon and I are the only ones in our club that have Peace Corps in our background. And when I go to the Peace Corps group, they seem unaware and not very interested in things Rotary, which is kind of a frustration for me because it's our similarities are so obvious and so great. So part of my motivation is to try and bring that awareness to both groups so that we can enjoy our synergies. So anyhow, that's what I wanted to say. So Sophia, there was an effort to start a Peace Corps fellowship within Rotary a long time ago. Maybe we can do it again, except that you should look at the Partnering for Peace organization, because it may be the same thing, and rather than split up our efforts, maybe we should focus on one that's going pretty well, Partnering for Peace. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Keith, as you talked about the need to increase awareness between groups and that you've been kind of thinking about and committed to that, do you have any suggestions or recommendations for us today about what seems to work in doing so?
Well, I don't, but one good start is to have Keevon present to our club, which he did yesterday, about things Peace Corps. That may have been the first program material that's ever been presented to our club. I don't know, but I think we should continue that. And if I could get some more Peace Corps volunteers to come in and present other things that are happening, I would like that. And but I think I've got to take the lead on that, because I'm the only one in our club that's also in that other group. So that's homework for me to do, to get some more Peace Corps volunteers over to our club to kind of expose our club to things Peace Corps.
And it sounds like Ted may have given us a resource here with the National Peace Corps Association website about at least connecting to those affinity groups. As far as how do we find each other, it's probably easier to find Rotary than it is to find Peace Corps volunteers that are back home. But that this affinity group model at least would be a strategy.
Yeah, well, I've got that contact information, at least for Western North Carolina. But you're right, it is easier to do it that way.
Well, and Keith brought up a great point that actually, not to confuse people, but actually Partnering for Peace is listed as a affinity group under this, under that website, under the National Peace Corps Association, because they set up this kind of network so that returned Peace Corps volunteer groups could organize themselves around various topics, whether it's geography or the country they served in or a topic, but I still think it would be helpful for this group to see that network.
Yeah, I would like to I really appreciated that backstory, Keith, and that was very helpful. And I'd like to offer a little backstory on the birth of this event. Was Keevon had an interest in speaking at the International Assembly, which is where all governors are trained. And so he and I were talking about some possibility of getting him involved in that. And one of the things that came out of that conversation was the idea of putting on an event like this event, in fact. And it occurs to me in listening to everyone that there may be a need for us to expand our reach here and take this event on the road, so to speak. And perhaps we should do a multi-district event where we can bring to light these conversations and these resources, these potential relationships. So that could be, I think, a good action step would be to try and create more awareness by expanding. I was encouraged to hear my classmate David Hayden had this similar type program in Raleigh there with Kim Dixon. They've got some conversation going there, so that's a synergy we could build. And I think maybe getting Keith or Keevon talking about this at different pets trainings, doing maybe just having sort of a virtual speaker type thing where we can, with the power of Zoom, we can get the word out a lot better. And there seems to be just a shortage of information sharing going back and forth, but I'm with Keith on this. There's a lot of synergy that I'm hearing about that needs to be shared.
There's another Rotary Club presentation on the calendar. I think the first week in March at Milton Butterworth in Hendersonville, and I think Keevon's on the rostrum for that as well.
Yep, Keevon's on the road.
Yeah, he's going to do that, and so we could probably repeat some individual club presentations throughout our district as just kind of a first step, and then see what interest can be raised on a per club basis, and then bring those people together, because not everybody in Peace Corps is going to want, not everybody in every Rotary Club is going to want to do everything Peace Corps, but there got to be some interest out there, because I just feel it, and Keevon feels it. I think you feel it, David.
I do, indeed.
And Keith, in particular, when the kind of action item is to continue presentations throughout the district with the intended result of raising Rotarian awareness of these connection opportunities, or kind of what does success look like in those presentations?
Well, I don't know. We have to define how high is up. You know, I don't have an answer for that yet. The Partnering for Peace group, whose other website I have here just out of view, does have a lot of materials aimed at Rotary. And so I'll see if I can get some of those into David's hands.
Yes.
Because it's grist for the presentation mill.
And also, I think an action step we can put here is I would like at our district conference for there to be a presence for our coalition of Peacebuilders we have here today. So we whether that's speaking or having a table at the House of Friendship, some type of presence where we can get a district-wide view as well.
I think we need to get Kim Dixon involved with these presentations. She's president of our Partnering for Peace this year.
Yeah.
And she's speaking right now and going through her slide deck, and I'm keeping one of my eyes on that. It's wonderful stuff. And so she's polished, so is his presentation. Keevon and I are amateurs on this kind of stuff. And Kim's presentation is very portable. I'd love to see her involved in moving forward at our end of the state.
Let's get her for the August 13 through or 14 district conference.
Okay. I don't even have those dates.
August 13, 14, and 15. It'll be in Asheville at the Crown Plaza Resort. Let's get her penciled in for that, and we'll work out the details.
Okay.
Just to throw out there that as a resource, our recruiters, the recruiter team is very agile as well. If it's helpful to have them at the table, either in planning or presenting. But I totally agree with Keith's suggestion. I mean, Kim's terrific, and they speak with a Rotary lens, so that's super helpful. But the recruiters are also there to help, provide information that's going to be relevant to your groups. They're dying to know what information is, so they can, build the partnership, strengthen the collaboration too, as a pipeline for volunteers, right?
Right. Is there a way that we can get in contact with the recruiters, or is there a list of local recruiters in the area?
Yeah, they're actually in that guidance. There's a kind of like a Rotary finder. You can find your local recruiter, but I also can put you in touch with someone from this kind of core team they're trying to figure out what's going to work. Is there something that's going to work that they could replicate across all the recruiters with all the clubs? So I'm happy to connect you with that team.
Okay.
Perfect. So that's a Ted to put Keevon in touch action item. Does that sound right?
Perfect. I'm willing to do that.
David, I want to come back to you as far as getting Kim on the schedule for the district conference. Is that David reaches out to Kim, or Keith connects with Kim? Who owns that one?
It's David's conference, so you're the DG, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can do it. I was going to let Keith to breach the idea with her, but I can certainly take the lead on it. It's not a problem for me.
Well,
I think we have that our email in a stream of emails that we've sent back and forth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We'll make
I've
that
got all
happen.
of her
And I
contact
think it's a good
information.
idea to get, like Ted said, get the recruiters, get a recruiter involved. I think that would be a great addition as well.
So a presentation or even a panel about this, you can imagine having a presenter and then a panel around this conversation at the district conference. Before we get any further into other ideas for action or even clarifying some of the conversation we have, I want to acknowledge, Keevon, that we skipped over your presentation about Rotaract. Is there anything that you want to say to us about that?
Yeah, I feel like I was able to present it a little bit and just kind of give my perspective of what I feel like those synergies are and what the specific problem that I recognized was and what kind of motivated me to pull us all together here today. So I'm glad that I feel like I'm just glad that we're all here today. I'm glad that everyone seems very inspired to explore those synergies and really make those synergies more accessible to each organization and flesh out what it is that we can do, at the smallest level up until the highest level within the organization to help each other out. And,
will you give us just a quick elevator on what is Rotaract for people who may not be as familiar?
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop the screen share so that we can see you better.
So Rotaract is essentially a younger version of Rotary. So it's for people ages 18 up until I think 40. And there's two different models. There's a community-based model, which I'm the president of a community-based model, and there's also the college-based model. And so those Rotary clubs or Rotaract clubs exist within a university, and they're kind of primarily made up of university students. In the community-based model, we are just young professionals in the community. And one of the things that I've really found that kind of helps connect and helps draw in and attract more young professionals into Rotaract is our focus, our international focus, and focusing on having, an impact in the international community. And so I feel like, again, that's just something that is very much particular to our PCVs as well, Return Peace Corps volunteers. And so my interest was really just to explore that and have this as a very streamlined approach for young RPCVs who are returning home, who are looking to find people who have just as much of a passion in giving back to the community as they do, and giving back to that international community especially. And so that's where I was, my thought process was just, wow, there's so many synergies here with the Rotaract and RPCVs, and this is where they can find that sense of belonging, of people who share their same values. And how can we get this word out to more RPCVs who, once they come home, they do feel a little bit lost or misplaced, or they've just had this amazing experience, and it's so touching and it's so hard to share with people sometimes, and especially people who don't always have that sense of wanting to give back. So that's why I'm passionate about this work that we're doing.
Keevon, do you have examples? So we've talked a lot about the existing connectivities and guidance documents around Rotary and Peace Corps connectivity and Partners for Peace. Is there guidance and kind of pathways already between Rotaract and Peace Corps specifically in place? And Ted, maybe this is a question for you, or is it really Rotary as kind of standard Rotary? I don't know if the nuance is important.
Yeah, I haven't, go ahead.
No, go.
I was going to say, I haven't seen any kind of direct linkage to Rotaract specifically and RPCVs. So I haven't seen anything specifically like that. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, the only thing I could say is we identify in the guidance this group of Rotaractors.
Right.
It's like this group exists. I'm not sure if we have any sort of link to a resource or a connector. However, I will say that our recruitment team is, and I'll have to, again, we'll connect you because they're very keen on connecting with Rotaractors specifically. They think that might be from a pipeline perspective, at least, that might be a really valuable group to work with, in addition to the traditional Rotary clubs.
Yeah, I think we can both just help each other's pipelines. Exactly.
Yeah, I think we can connect.
And it sounds like an emerging kind of pipeline strategy that's even connecting returning Peace Corps volunteers to Rotaract that then connects to Rotary, and then newly thinking through a retiree strategy that's a more direct connect between existing Rotarians and Peace Corps and back and forth that way.
I'd like to add one to that, Heather. I just finished looking at, I was on the Peace Corps webpage and I was looking at their response openings, you know, where they have a response. And I was looking at I sorted them by country. And I was looking at these countries and going, we have Rotary clubs in these countries. You know, why aren't we connecting the Rotary clubs in those countries to those response needs? You know, so it may not be that someone from the United States needs to go to Panama or needs to go to the Philippines or needs to go to Jamaica or needs to go, you know, we have Rotarians there that, you know, could work locally on those projects. So I think that's another way of connecting. If we knew, you know, we're always looking for what we call, I'm a Rotary Foundation chair, so I'm keenly aware of the grant opportunities because we're connecting clubs to grant opportunities all around the world. And I'm going, well, if we needed this and we connected the local Rotary Club to an international Rotary Club and we created funding through a global grant organization, we could, how many of these things could we turn into resources of both people and other resources that might be needed for that special thing, using the Rotary clubs in the country that have that response need as the core people, because the needs assessment has already been done. It's like, okay, if you understand the jargon of global grants process, you have to have a local needs assessment done. Well, they've done the needs assessment. So let's go connect that local Rotary club to the international club. And I mean, they're sitting there, they're just like projects waiting for us to do. Yeah. And there are many in close to the United States, you know, and Guatemala and, you know, in the Central Americas and in Mexico and, you know, things that aren't necessarily in the Philippines, and people that I know that are in our zone, our paired zones between 33 and 34. I'm going, I know clubs in Jamaica. Why aren't they doing this? You know, or I know clubs in Panama. Why aren't they doing this? So, you know, I think there's yet one more pathway to serving the needs if our goal is really about serving needs in a combined synergistic kind of way.
And Carol, that was another thing that got me really excited. I think that's a great point. With just knowing that there's that needs assessment already done, and then how can we get Rotarians behind it, and you know, and with you working at the district foundation level, how can we, you know, provide those access to those resources in a monetary kind of way. And one of the things that I was really excited about when I became the president of Rotaract was, and having my Peace Corps experience, I began thinking about, okay, so if I can connect with, like you said, Peace Corps volunteers in country, and our Rotaract club could maybe help to fund one of their projects because they've already done the needs assessment and it fits, you know, our model for funding projects. Could we then even maybe, and this is probably very out there, but could our Rotaract club maybe once a year fund a project that a Peace Corps volunteer is working on, also travel out to that country and help them implement the project, if it was, say, a building project or you know, implementing building that I know there was like a toilet building project or whatever kind of project that there was. Could we then travel out to not only fund it, but also travel out to that club and implement it, and how exciting that would be for Rotaract members, and how you know, impassioned that would get some of those young Rotaract members to eventually become Peace Corps volunteers or even stay within Rotary, as they could do that maybe on a yearly basis. And I feel like that could just create better peace builders, like we're saying, through that experience. And you know, it's not just a vacation to another country, but it's actually helping someone and being in that community and experience a Peace Corps volunteer, speaking that language. And I feel like, you know, if I had that experience, I would just be enamored with the whole Peace Corps structure. Like, wow, they're speaking this language, they know the customs, they're living in this village. I got to see them on the ground doing this work, and you know, I helped out in the way that I could, and I was welcomed in by the community. So that's kind of where I was also at as well. Just going off of what Carol said.
I wish you could.
I know that was,
Enthusiasm, Keevon, kind of control it. I mean, I wish you'd have some enthusiasm. Now, and the umbrella I would put that particular idea under is synergizing existing, not building a new wheel, but taking existing programs and having them synergize together. You know, because that's just one we haven't talked about, using that global grant vehicle and Rotarians on the ground to deal with the local needs. So it's just another wheel to put in there, Heather, that exists that we would want to explore as part of the process.
About synergy
Yes,
across existing efforts. And I think, you know, we've really heard that a good bit as a thread throughout all of these is how do we better connect and make aware the opportunities that do exist, if it's raising awareness of them, and then how do we bridge them? Ted, were you going to jump in?
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think that from the beginning of the partnership from Rotary International and Peace Corps perspective, the real focus was how do we engage on the ground overseas? That was the primary focus of the strategic partnership. We've since discovered all these ways to engage along the whole kind of life cycle of the volunteer, right? From recruitment to coming back to the US. But figuring out how to connect kind of the local US club to local in-country club with local Peace Corps post, like if we could develop that relationship, it would be such a huge win, I think, for multiple, you know, waves of volunteers too, if we could build that in-country relationship.
Keevon, I'm going to check in with you from a facilitation perspective on this. I wonder if we want to go ahead and start kind of getting clear about where the ideas go from here, because I think we've heard a little bit, you know, before Peter left, talking about like we need to elevate the partnership of Peace Corps and Rotary to a new level. So I think part of it is not just what are the next actions, but at what level are they happening? You know, is this, you know, because there's international connectivity across the entities that we're discussing, obviously then for us in US and district and club. So I'm curious how you want us to kind of think about action and next, and at what level in that space.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Heather. I think, yeah, I feel very excited about everything that we've talked about here today. And I think we are kind of going, I think we're on the right path of everything that we've got going on. And it sounds like kind of our next steps are listed here in the pink circles. Heather, is that correct?
Yeah, well, and I can just recap where I think we are on this side, and then we'll see, because I think we do have a couple that are still kind of lingering, not all the way kind of hammered down to a hot pink circle. So we did hear about some resources that exist that sound like they're going to be helpful for us understanding what's already been laid out as the possibilities for these connections. So this guidance document between Rotary International and Peace Corps that Keevon's going to share out for us. Also some pointing to the Partnering for Peace website materials that have resources for us to check out to see about possibilities and what already is there and exists. David's going to help get this conversation around synergy. I think it's a great word that we're just reminded of, that really this is about how do we optimize the synergy between these organizations that obviously have some shared mission alignment around peace. David's going to help get that conversation on the agenda. There are a few other ideas that I think, you know, kind of in general too, there are ideas about having, Peter mentioned a task force or a, you know, I guess I'm not sure if that would be at the district level or otherwise. So I guess maybe just a question for the group about the structure of even the next step of the conversation. Do we have another district level conversation about this? Is it go to clubs from here? And maybe just if people have ideas about, what you hope to see from here as far as connectivity and dialogue beyond today, and at what level that feels helpful. Can we just do a go around and see if people have ideas? David's off mute, so
I think
we'll
Peter said that he was going to elevate this to a task force at RI.
Okay.
And he was moved to do that. So I think you can put the pink circle there for Peter. And, you know, I think that we've got tons of action steps here. And my brain, I didn't even think that we were going to have this many great ideas, but I just believe that the next step is, raising this awareness and getting this at the district level. And one other thing that I would like to do, and I'll work with Keevon to do it, is to kind of, and Heather, kind of distill this into our mind map here, to distill this into a piece of writing that we can share. And I would like to share this with my classmates in North Carolina, my district governor classmates. And so I would commit to doing that and seeing if they would have an interest in, watching we've recorded this today. I will share that with my classmates, and hopefully it may inspire them to do something similar in their own districts. And if we could, to me, great success has already been achieved today and these conversations. But if we could expand this in our state of North Carolina, that would, to me, I would feel absolutely wonderful if we could get a couple more districts to engage with this.
It feels like it's, go ahead.
Well, and just one last thing, Peter has his effort to engage youth in peace, and I'm sure that other districts and I know other districts are working on that. And I think Carol, if I understood correctly, she had mentioned that they were talking about adding this type of work that Keevon and our district have worked on today, adding this as a prong of that effort, is Youth and Peace Initiative. So I feel like there's, plenty of opportunity for us to move forward and continue this conversation. This has been very, very useful. And I'm very sorry, but I do need to step away from the meeting because I have to take my daughter to a soccer game an hour and a half away. So.
Just one closing thing, David. I think that Sophia, as she was exiting, she had to exit too, so we probably should draw this to a close, but I think she's very open to launching something at the club level that involves this core group that's already here that could be added to. She just wants us to know what she wants us to do, and she's willing to be the catalyst at a club level to creating something that has legs on it for moving forward.
Yeah, and it sounded like there were a couple. So specifically this conversation around exploring fellowships and then exploring a retiree strategy. Sounds like the Asheville Club is interested in kind of thinking through those specifics. Does that sound fair, Carol?
I think that's probably
And Sharon, you're in the Asheville Club too, as I understand it.
Sharon, Keith, Keevon, me.
Oh, everybody. Really, it is everybody.
Yeah. Sharon, Keevon, we're all in the same club.
You all should attend the meeting, the Henderson meeting next week, where Keevon's going to present about Peace Corps. And if that's a successful program, maybe we can bring it back to our club.
Or establish the connection, Keith, to have other clubs jointly create this club, this committee. You know, it doesn't have to be, it can be catalyzed at the Asheville Club, but it can be accessed from other clubs that have interest.
I think Milton would be interested.
Yeah, sounds like Milton would be interested as well.
And before you got on, Keith, we were also talking about the Waynesville Club. I spoke with some of them yesterday morning about that, and that's where Heather belongs. And so I think that, reaching out is appropriate right now and get some momentum in that district.
So it sounds like maybe the Asheville Club, given the volume of you all that are on the phone, the Asheville Rotarians maybe are up for kind of stepping into being a convener of this continued conversation about some of these club specific or these specific ideas and reaching out to others to see if they want to join. Did I capture that right, Sharon?
True. I think that Sophia was trying to fishing to say who would be the leader in the club, and that hasn't been resolved because we're all sort of sitting here wondering if it'll be Keith because that's who she asked, or whether it'll be Keevon or Sharon or whoever.
Yeah,
you know.
and that's something that I would certainly like to take like a I don't know if leading role in creating the group is, but I would like to create the group and be able to be there to support. Not quite sure if I can take on like the goal of leading it through, but I can certainly speak whenever I can, and also, be there to support the efforts and be that kind of connecting piece behind the scenes, but not necessarily at the forefront. So I think once we kind of have all of this together, and then we can start thinking about it and connecting people and sharing it with other people and kind of building that collective within our club or district or local club here. And I think then we can start to create a strategy around it. And I think it's going to be very much at that Rotary Club level, because I think, kind of like you mentioned before, I'd like to have something that we can prove that works, or have some structure around it before we start presenting it to the district or to other clubs. Carol, I think you mentioned that before, and I think that's a really important piece of presenting information to multiple different clubs. Really want to make sure that we have a strategy that's in place. So I'm happy to kind of take that momentary lead with Keith and Milton or whoever it may be. So that may be another kind of action step.
In my travels,
we look at
two different Rotary clubs.
We get to hear 2 webinars in one today. Keith, I think you do have your hand up. Is that still a lingering comment? Well, except now you're muted.
Maybe he's talking to, there he is.
Lower hand.
Okay.
I just lowered my hand. A new trick.
So Keevon, if I understand, you think connecting with Keevon and Keith in the Asheville Club, y'all figure out how to keep this conversation rolling, some intention at the international level to keep it going, some intention with David to elevate it at the district level. So we will turn this mural into some notes that make sense to others and aren't scattered. Keith, there, thank you.
Okay, we Asheville Club has a board meeting Tuesday night. I'm international service, so I would like to say something about this. So I don't know how much time I'll get, but since Sophie is on here, but I think there's some good ideas that we need to put, before the board, let them think on them. So I'll plan to do that.
Good, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Shane.
Keevon, I feel like we've kind of sufficiently given a place, at least for the conversation to land after today. Does that feel true for you?
I think so as well.
Okay.
I think everyone's passionate about the work and sees the synergies there, and that's really important. And I think that kind of seeing that came very organically, which is always, really great. I think it's one thing to kind of have an agenda to force something down someone's throat, but when everyone kind of just accepts it and it's like, wow, yes, that does make sense. I think that's even better. So I'm excited about the group that we have here and the things that we have planned, and the action steps that we're going to be taking from this, and so that we can better be peace builders around the world and in our communities and globally. Thank you all today for attending, and really appreciate your work and your mind coming to this conversation, and the perspective that you all have brought. Really appreciate it.